Kid.
ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Applied Ecology and Evolution 1. Detailed lecture. Applied ecology and evolution combine theoretical ecological and evolutionary principles with practical approaches to addressing real-world environmental and biological issues. This multidisciplinary field integrates conservation biology, biodiversity management, disease ecology, and evolutionary approaches in breeding to help solve various problems in natural and agricultural ecosystems. Applied ecology deals with the effects of human activity on the environment, ecosystem services, and habitat management, while applied evolution focuses on evolutionary principles, such as genetics, selection, and adaptation, to improve human welfare through agriculture, medicine, and conservation. 2. Key topics in applied ecology and evolution. A. Conservation biology and biodiversity conservation. Conservation biology is a branch of biology focused on understanding the factors that influence the loss of biodiversity and applying this knowledge to protect species, ecosystems, and genetic diversity. It also involves conservation strategies for the preservation of wildlife habitats and ecosystems. Key concepts in conservation include biodiversity, the variety of life forms, species, genetic, and ecosystem diversity within a given ecosystem. Conserving biodiversity is essential for ecosystem functioning, resilience, and providing ecosystem services. Hotspots and endemism. Areas rich in endemic species and experiencing a significant rate of habitat loss are considered biodiversity hotspots. Protecting such regions is crucial to preserving species diversity. Threats to biodiversity. Human-induced threats, such as habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, overexploitation, and invasive species, contribute to the endangerment of species. Conservation strategies aim to mitigate these threats. Conservation strategies. These include protecting large, intact ecosystems, e.g., through protected areas or national parks, restoring degraded ecosystems, and promoting in situ, on-site conservation and ex situ, off-site conservation in zoos or seed banks. B. Disease ecology and evolution. Disease ecology is the study of how infectious diseases spread through ecosystems and how these diseases interact with both their host organisms and the broader environment. It combines ecological principles with evolutionary biology to understand how diseases emerge, spread, and evolve within populations. Key concepts in disease ecology and evolution. Transmission dynamics. Understanding how infectious diseases spread, e.g., via vectors, direct contact, environmental reservoirs, is critical for controlling outbreaks. Evolution of pathogens. Pathogens evolve quickly, leading to the development of new strains and the adaptation of pathogens to evade immune defenses. The study of pathogen evolution helps in developing effective vaccines and treatments. Host-parasite interactions. The interaction between hosts, e.g., humans, animals, and parasites influences disease progression. Evolutionary arms races can occur, with hosts evolving resistance and parasites evolving virulence. One Health concept. The recognition that the health of humans, animals, and ecosystems are interconnected, highlighting the need for interdisciplinary approaches in disease management and control. C. Agricultural ecology and evolution in crop and animal breeding. Agricultural ecology applies ecological principles to the study of agriculture and farming systems, aiming to improve the sustainability of agricultural practices. The integration of evolutionary principles into agricultural practice involves genetic improvement, pest management, and the cultivation of resilient crops and animals. Key areas include crop breeding and evolution. Selective breeding is used to improve crop traits such as yield, disease resistance, and drought tolerance. Understanding evolutionary processes such as genetic drift, mutation, gene flow, and natural selection allows scientists to improve crops genetically and adapt them to changing environmental conditions. Pest and disease management. Sustainable agriculture aims to control pest populations and plant diseases while minimizing the ecological impact of chemical pesticides. Evolutionary approaches to pest control include the use of natural predators, genetic modifications, or alternative pest management strategies, e.g., biological control. Agroecology focuses on creating farming systems that work in harmony with natural ecological processes, minimizing environmental degradation and preserving biodiversity. This includes the use of cover crops, crop rotations, and integrated pest management, IPM. D. Climate change and evolution. The study of evolution in relation to climate change is critical for understanding how species might adapt to a rapidly changing world. Climate change can alter habitats, migration patterns, and the availability of resources, leading to shifts in species distributions and requiring adaptations. Key ideas in this area. Adaptive evolution in response to climate change. Species may adapt to climate change through genetic changes that allow them to tolerate new environmental conditions, e.g., increased temperature or altered precipitation. Climate change and phenology. The timing of biological events, phenology, such as migration, reproduction, and flowering, can shift due to climate change. Species must adapt to these changes, or they may risk extinction. Range shifts. As temperatures rise, many species are shifting their ranges poleward or to higher altitudes to find suitable habitats. Understanding how species might respond in the future is a key area of research in applied evolutionary biology. 3. Previous year's GATE questions on applied ecology and evolution. Q1 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2022. Which of the following best describes in situ conservation? A. Conservation of species in their natural habitat. B. Protection of species in captivity. C. Regeneration of species through breeding programs. D. Preservation of species in gene banks. Answer. A. Conservation of species in their natural habitat. Explanation. In situ conservation involves protecting species in their natural environment, where they are naturally occurring. This could involve establishing protected areas, national parks, or wildlife sanctuaries. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2021. Which of the following is true for evolution in agricultural crops? A. Evolution in crops tends to make them less resilient to climate change. B. Crop improvement depends entirely on environmental conditions, not evolutionary processes. C. Selective breeding in crops helps increase their yield and resistance to pests and diseases. D. Evolutionary principles are not applicable to crop breeding. Answer. C. Selective breeding in crops helps increase their yield and resistance to pests and diseases. Explanation. Selective breeding is a primary way of improving agricultural crops. By selecting for specific traits such as higher yield, disease resistance, and tolerance to abiotic stress, agricultural crops evolve and become better suited to meet the needs of food production. Q3 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. Which concept refers to the interaction between human, animal, and environmental health? A. Global health. B. Biodiversity conservation. C. One Health. D. Disease ecology. Answer. C. One Health. Explanation. The One Health concept emphasizes the interconnectedness of human, animal, and environmental health. It promotes integrated approaches to managing diseases, ecosystem degradation, and zoonotic diseases that affect multiple species across ecosystems. 4. Conclusion. Applied ecology and evolution combine fundamental ecological and evolutionary theories with real-world applications to solve urgent environmental challenges. Whether through conservation biology, agriculture, disease management, or climate change, these fields provide practical solutions for preserving biodiversity, improving food security, and promoting sustainable interactions between humans and nature. The interdisciplinary approach is key for addressing global ecological challenges and ensuring the resilience of ecosystems. Feel free to reach out for any more details of the next topic. Smile. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Evolutionary Thought, History and Foundations 1, Detailed Lecture. Evolutionary thought refers to the various scientific ideas and theories proposed over time to explain the origin, change, and adaptation of life on Earth. It examines how species have evolved, the mechanisms driving this process, and the historical milestones of evolutionary theory. Understanding the history of evolutionary thought provides insights into the development of current concepts in genetics, natural selection, adaptation, and speciation. The concept of evolution did not appear suddenly but developed over centuries through the contributions of multiple scientists and thinkers. These ideas evolved through various stages, from early creationist views to more modern scientific theories, each layer adding to our understanding of life's origins and the natural processes governing it. 2. Key concepts in evolutionary thought. A. Early theories of life and evolution. Creationism. In ancient times, the creationist view dominated, which stated that species were created as they are by a divine being. This view remained prevalent in various civilizations, including ancient Greek and Christian philosophy, where the belief in fixed, unchanging species was central. Linnaean classification. The 18th century Swedish biologist Carl Linnaeus introduced a systematic way to classify organisms based on shared characteristics, organizing life into hierarchical categories: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. While not evolutionary in nature, Linnaeus's work laid the foundation for understanding the relationships between species. B. Pre-Darwinian thinkers and contributions. Before Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection, several naturalists and philosophers laid the groundwork for the theory of evolution. George Louis Leclerc Buffon suggested that species could change over time in response to environmental factors. He proposed that species might have evolved from a common ancestor, a radical idea for the time. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck's theory of evolution was among the first to articulate a mechanistic process behind species change. Lamarck suggested that acquired characteristics were passed down to offspring through inheritance, a concept that is now considered largely discredited. However, his idea of evolutionary change in response to the environment contributed to later theories. Charles Lyell, a geologist, introduced the concept of uniformitarianism, which argued that geological processes occur slowly over time. This concept was crucial in shaping Darwin's thinking about slow, gradual change in species, as it indicated that Earth's physical features could evolve slowly, which also applied to living organisms. C. The theory of natural selection. Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace independently developed the theory of natural selection, which became the cornerstone of evolutionary biology. In 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, outlining the concept that organisms with advantageous traits were more likely to survive and reproduce, passing on those traits to future generations. Key ideas in Darwin's theory. Variation. Individuals within a species vary in their traits, and some of these variations are heritable. Struggle for survival. Organisms compete for limited resources like food, shelter, and mates, leading to a struggle for survival. Natural selection. Some traits increase an individual's chances of survival and reproduction. These traits become more common in the population over time. Common ancestry. Over long periods, different species can evolve from a common ancestor. Deep Mendelian genetics and the modern synthesis. The next important breakthrough in evolutionary thought came with the rediscovery of Gregor Mendel's principles of inheritance in the early 20th century. Mendel's laws of inheritance explained how traits are passed down from parents to offspring through discrete units called genes. In the 1930s and 1940s, scientists like Ronald Fisher, J.B.S. Haldane, and Sewell Wright integrated Mendelian genetics with Darwin's theory of natural selection to form the modern synthesis, which brought together evolutionary biology, genetics, paleontology, and systematics. Key concepts of the modern synthesis. Population genetics, the study of gene frequency distribution within populations, emphasizing that evolution occurs through changes in these frequencies over time. Selection and drift, both natural selection and genetic drift, random changes in gene frequency, were understood to drive evolutionary change. Speciation, the formation of new species, was clarified through the study of reproductive isolation mechanisms. E. Molecular evolution and the role of DNA. In the mid-20th century, the discovery of DNA structure and the understanding of its role in inheritance revolutionized evolutionary theory. Molecular biology allowed scientists to study genetic differences at the DNA level, which led to new insights into evolution. Molecular clocks. By comparing genetic material between species, scientists can estimate how long ago species diverged from a common ancestor. This allowed for more accurate timelines of evolutionary events. Neutral theory of molecular evolution. This theory, proposed by Moto Kimura, suggested that much of the genetic variation observed at the molecular level was neutral and did not affect an organism's fitness. It was thought to arise due to genetic drift, rather than natural selection, and contributed to understanding the speed and mechanisms of molecular evolution. 3. Evolutionary thought today, the ongoing theory. Evolutionary thought has grown in complexity and scope over time. Current areas of focus in evolutionary biology include Evo evolutionary developmental biology. This field explores how changes in developmental pathways contribute to evolutionary changes in body structure and form. Evolutionary ecology studies how ecological interactions and environmental factors influence evolutionary processes. This includes topics like coevolution, niche construction, and life history evolution. Human evolution. Research into the origin of humans continues, including understanding hominin evolution and the genetic and behavioral aspects of human history. F. Important contributions in evolutionary thought. Charles Darwin, father of modern evolutionary theory with his idea of natural selection. Alfred Russel Wallace, co-discoverer of the theory of natural selection and an important contributor to biogeography. Gregor Mendel, the foundation of genetics through his work on inheritance patterns. Theodosius Dobzhansky, Ernst Mayr, and George Gaylord Simpson, key figures in the modern synthesis, contributing to population genetics, speciation, and evolutionary mechanisms. 4. Previous year's GATE questions on evolutionary thought. Q1 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2021. The theory that the morphological form of an organism is influenced by the environmental factors during its development is known as A. Natural selection. B. Lamarckian evolution. C. The theory of recapitulation. D. Evolutionary developmental biology. Evo Devo. Answer. D. Evolutionary developmental biology. Evo Devo. Explanation. Evo Devo focuses on how development processes shape evolutionary outcomes, explaining morphological evolution through genetic pathways during development. Q2. Gate Ecology and Evolution 2020. Which concept did Darwin and Wallace independently propose as the key mechanism for evolutionary change? A. Genetic drift. B. Natural selection. C. Mutational variation. D. Coevolution. Answer. B. Natural selection. Explanation. Both Darwin and Wallace independently recognize that natural selection is the primary mechanism driving evolutionary change, where beneficial traits increase an organism's survival and reproduction chances. Q3. Gate Ecology and Evolution 2019. The rediscovery of Mendelian genetics helped unify evolutionary theory with A. Lamarckism. B. Molecular biology. C. The modern synthesis of evolution and genetics. D. Genetic drift. Answer. C. The modern synthesis of evolution and genetics. Explanation. The rediscovery of Mendelian genetics laid the foundation for the modern synthesis, which integrated genetics and evolutionary biology, explaining how genetic variation and evolutionary processes interact. 5. Conclusion. The development of evolutionary thought is an ongoing journey that has been shaped by groundbreaking ideas and discoveries. Starting from ancient creationist ideas, to Lamarck's theories, Darwin and Wallace's revolutionary work, and the modern synthesis with Mendelian genetics, evolution theory continues to evolve with molecular and genetic studies, providing us with a deeper understanding of the processes shaping life on Earth. Feel free to request more information or move to the next topic. Smile. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Fundamentals of Evolution 1. Detailed lecture. Evolution is the process through which living organisms undergo change across generations, resulting in variations in populations over time. It is the fundamental concept that explains the diversity of life on Earth. Through evolutionary processes, populations of organisms adapt to their environment, changing in response to natural selection, genetic drift, gene flow, and mutations. Understanding the basics of evolution is critical for interpreting the vast array of biological diversity and its underlying mechanisms. Fundamental concepts in evolutionary biology include mechanisms of genetic variation, the roles of natural selection and adaptation, and the formation of new species through speciation. 2. Key concepts in evolutionary fundamentals. A. Evolutionary mechanisms. Evolution involves several processes that drive genetic changes within populations, shaping their genetic structure over time. 1. Natural selection. Natural selection is one of the key mechanisms by which evolution occurs. It suggests that individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on their genetic material, whereas less advantageous traits are gradually eliminated. Fitness refers to an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in its environment. Adaptive traits. These are traits that increase the fitness of individuals within a given environment. For example, camouflage in predators and prey or resistance to disease. Selection pressure. The environmental factors that influence natural selection. This can include food availability, predation, competition, and climate conditions. Types of natural selection. Directional selection favors individuals at one end of the phenotypic spectrum. Example, increasing resistance to a disease in a population over time. Disruptive selection favors individuals at both extremes of the phenotypic spectrum. Example, a population with two forms of color morphs adapted to different environmental conditions. Stabilizing selection favors the average or moderate phenotype, reducing genetic diversity. Example, a bird species that survives best at a moderate egg size. 2. Mutation. Mutations are random changes in the DNA sequence of an organism's genome. Mutations introduce new genetic variation within populations. While most mutations may be neutral or deleterious, occasionally, a beneficial mutation can enhance an individual's fitness in a specific environment and may be passed on to future generations. Types of mutations. Point mutations, a change in a single nucleotide base in the DNA sequence. Frame shift mutations, mutations that shift the reading frame of the genetic code. Chromosomal mutations, alterations to the structure or number of chromosomes, which can lead to large-scale changes in organisms. 3. Genetic drift. Genetic drift is the random change in allele frequencies within a small population due to chance events, such as the death of individuals without regard to their phenotype. In small populations, genetic drift can lead to the loss of alleles and reduced genetic variation. Larger populations have more buffered responses to genetic drift. Types of genetic drift. Bottleneck effect, a sharp reduction in the size of a population due to environmental events, e.g., a natural disaster that randomly eliminate individuals regardless of their traits. Founder effect, occurs when a small number of individuals establish a new population, potentially carrying only a small, non-representative subset of the original population's genetic variation. 4. Gene flow. Gene flow is the movement of alleles between populations due to migration of individuals or gametes between distinct groups. It has the effect of increasing genetic diversity within a population but can reduce differences between populations, leading to genetic homogenization over time. Gene flow tends to reduce the chances of speciation because it prevents populations from diverging genetically due to continuous genetic exchange. 5. Sexual selection. Sexual selection occurs when certain traits become more common in a population due to their appeal in mating choices. These traits may not necessarily confer survival advantages but increase an individual's chances of attracting a mate. Mate choice, when individuals select mates based on characteristics such as bright colors, size, or other traits associated with mate quality. Intersexual selection, competition among members of one sex, usually males, for access to mates. B. Speciation. Speciation is the process through which new and distinct species arise. Speciation can be driven by geographic isolation, reproductive isolation, or a combination of both. Over time, populations of a single species accumulate enough genetic changes that they become genetically distinct and reproductively isolated. Types of speciation. Allopatric speciation occurs when populations are geographically isolated, leading to reduced gene flow between them. Over time, genetic drift, natural selection, and mutations can lead to the divergence of these populations into different species. Sympatric speciation occurs when populations in the same geographic area evolve into distinct species due to ecological or behavioral barriers. This could include variations in mating habits, habitat preferences, or diet. Parapatric speciation happens when populations are adjacent to each other but do not overlap completely. Hybrid zones may form at the boundary between the populations, leading to speciation through selective pressures at the interface. See evidence for evolution. There are several lines of evidence that support the theory of evolution. Fossil record provides historical evidence of past life forms and shows the progression and diversity of life on Earth. Comparative anatomy, the study of the structures of different organisms. Homologous structures, such as the limb bones of vertebrates, provide evidence for a common ancestry. Embryology, comparing the embryonic development of different organisms shows similarities in early stages, supporting common descent. Molecular biology, the comparison of DNA and protein sequences across species shows genetic similarities and provides strong evidence for common ancestry. 3. Key questions in evolutionary fundamentals from GATE. Q1 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. Which evolutionary mechanism is most directly responsible for adaptation? A. Mutation. B. Genetic drift. C. Natural selection. D. Gene flow. Answer. C. Natural selection. Explanation. Natural selection is the process through which individuals with favorable traits for their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce, directly leading to adaptation over time. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2018, which of the following is an example of stabilizing selection? A. Larger beaks in birds in response to availability of large seeds. B. Small, fast fish thriving in the ocean due to a preference for speed. C. Human infants with an average weight have a higher survival rate. D. Moths that have both light and dark forms in response to different predation pressures. Answer. C. Human infants with an average weight have a higher survival rate. Explanation. Stabilizing selection occurs when intermediate forms of a trait have higher fitness, such as infants of average weight having better chances of survival. Q3 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2021. The phenomenon where a small isolated population's genetic variation becomes significantly reduced due to random sampling is called A. Natural selection. B. Genetic drift. C. Gene flow. D. Speciation. Answer. B. Genetic drift. Explanation. Genetic drift refers to random changes in allele frequencies, especially in small populations. It can result in the loss of genetic variation without regard to the fitness of traits. 4. Conclusion. The fundamentals of evolution encompass the processes that explain how life evolves over time. Mechanisms like natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, gene flow, and sexual selection interact to shape the genetic diversity and adaptation of populations. Speciation and genetic evidence further support these ideas, providing a comprehensive framework for understanding biological diversity. Evolutionary theory is integral to modern biology, influencing fields from ecology to genetics, medicine, and agriculture. The study of evolutionary processes provides insights into the adaptation of life forms to their environment, and the methods of how new species arise and thrive over time. Let me know if you need any further elaboration or want to continue with the next topic. Smile. You said. How many more topics are left from that list? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. We have covered the following topics so far from the list. Evolutionary thought, history and foundations, fundamentals of evolution. The remaining topics yet to be covered are life history, strategies, coevolution, population genetics, molecular evolution, macroevolution, foraging, ecology, reproduction, social living, biodiversity and conservation, disease, ecology and evolution, plant and animal breeding, global climate change. So, there are 14 topics remaining to be covered. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Smile. You said, okay, continue. Heart. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Life history strategies 1. Detailed lecture. Life history strategies refer to the various ways organisms allocate their energy and resources towards growth, survival, and reproduction. These strategies are influenced by environmental conditions and affect the organism's ability to successfully reproduce and ensure the survival of their offspring. The fundamental trade-offs in life history are associated with how organisms prioritize investment in different aspects of life, such as growth and development, reproductive effort, survival. These strategies can be classified into two broad categories, which correspond to different environments and ecological niches. 2. Key concepts in life history strategies. A. Trade-offs in life history. The primary concept in life history theory is the trade-off between the number of offspring and the amount of parental investment. Since energy is limited, organisms must allocate resources efficiently among survival, growth, and reproduction. Reproductive trade-offs. A common trade-off involves how much energy should go into producing offspring versus the energy devoted to personal survival or future reproductive events. For instance, an organism might produce many offspring but invest little in their care, R strategy, or it may produce fewer, more well-cared for offspring, K strategy. Survival versus reproduction. In resource-limited environments, investing in long-term survival might decrease an individual's reproductive output, and vice versa. For example, large body size might improve survival chances but delay reproduction. B. Life history strategies, R versus K. Life history strategies can broadly be divided into two categories based on the pattern of reproduction, with different selective pressures shaping these strategies. These categories were first described by Robert MacArthur and Eric Bianca. 1. R selected species, quantity over quality characteristics. High reproductive rates, many offspring. Short lifespans. Early maturity. Little to no parental investment. Unpredictable environments where organisms have to reproduce quickly to exploit available resources. Examples, dandelions, many insects, and rodents are R strategists. They produce numerous offspring quickly to compensate for high mortality rates. 2. K selected species, quality over quantity. Characteristics. Low reproductive rates, fewer offspring. Long lifespans. Delayed maturity. High parental investment. Stable environments where competition for resources occurs. Examples, elephants, humans, and oak trees are K strategists. They invest considerable energy and resources in a smaller number of offspring to ensure their survival and future reproduction. C. Environmental influence on life history. Life history traits are flexible, meaning that environmental factors play a major role in shaping an organism's strategy. Examples include resource availability. Species in nutrient-rich environments tend to have larger offspring and higher reproductive success compared to those in nutrient-poor environments. Predation and mortality. High predation rates often favor R strategy with larger numbers of offspring to ensure survival of some, while stable, predation-free environments tend to support K strategists with more investment and fewer offspring. Competition for resources. Species in competitive environments tend to evolve K strategies, focusing on producing fewer offspring but providing intense parental care to ensure their survival. 3. Life history strategies and adaptation. Life history strategies can be thought of as adaptive responses to environmental conditions and selective pressures. Over evolutionary time, the organism evolves strategies that maximize reproductive success. Slow growth strategy. In environments where resources are scarce, organisms often grow slowly but live longer and reproduce later. This strategy ensures they can invest time and effort into maximizing offspring survival. K selection. Fast growth strategy. In environments with plenty of resources and few predators, organisms may grow quickly and mature faster, enabling them to reproduce early and often with little parental care or selection. Evolvability of life histories. Populations might exhibit life history diversity due to genetic variation. Natural selection favors specific strategies based on the trade-offs each strategy offers, and these traits might evolve through time. 4. Previous year's GATE questions on life history strategies. Q1 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. Which of the following is an example of an R-selected species? A. Elephants. B. Oak trees. C. Cockroaches. D. Humans. Answer. C. Cockroaches. Explanation. Cockroaches produce many offspring with little to no parental investment and have high reproduction rates, fitting the characteristics of R-selection. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2020. Which life history trait would be expected for a species adapted to an environment with intense competition for resources? A. Low reproductive effort. B. High reproductive effort. C. Large number of small offspring. D. Small number of large offspring. Answer. D. Small number of large offspring. Explanation. Species in competitive environments tend to have fewer offspring, investing more in each one to enhance its chance of survival. Case selection. Q3 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2021. A species that lives in a stable environment, invests heavily in offspring care, has long lifespans, and produces fewer offspring would most likely be categorized as A. R strategist. B. K strategist. C. Neither A nor B. D. Adapted to rapid environmental change. Answer. B. K strategist. Explanation. A K strategist species focuses on survival and reproduction in stable environments. It produces fewer, well-cared for offspring with a longer lifespan and longer gestation times. 5. Conclusion. Life history strategies are an essential component of understanding evolutionary adaptation. These strategies reflect the way organisms allocate their energy across various aspects of their biology to maximize reproductive success in response to environmental pressures. Whether through R strategies, focused on quantity and rapid reproduction, or K strategies, emphasizing quality and long-term survival, life history strategies highlight the remarkable diversity and complexity of life on Earth. Feel free to proceed with any questions or let me know when you'd like to move to the next topic. Smile. You said, next. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT Company Evolution 1. Detailed lecture. Coevolution is the process by which two or more species influence each other's evolutionary development. It arises when the interactions between species create selective pressures that lead to reciprocal adaptations over time. These interactions can be mutualistic, competitive, or antagonistic, and they shape the evolution of traits in the involved species. Coevolution is observed in a variety of ecological interactions, where evolutionary changes in one species trigger evolutionary responses in another. These interactions result in tightly coupled evolutionary trajectories, which can lead to speciation or significant changes in population genetics. 2. Key concepts in company evolution. A. Types of coevolution. Coevolution can occur in different forms depending on the nature of the interactions between species. 1. Mutualistic company evolution. In mutualistic interactions, both species benefit from the relationship, and as such, they exert evolutionary pressures on each other that promote the persistence and improvement of the relationship. Example, pollinators and flowers. Pollinators like bees evolve to have specific adaptations, such as longer proboscises, that enable them to access nectar from certain flowers. In turn, flowers evolve to have characteristics that attract particular pollinators, such as brightly colored petals or fragrant smells. Example, mycorrhizal fungi in plants. The fungi benefit from the plant's carbon, while the plant gains enhanced access to water and minerals, particularly phosphorus, due to the fungi's spread into the soil. 2. Antagonistic coevolution. Antagonistic coevolution occurs when two species are engaged in a conflict, where one species benefits at the expense of the other, leading to an ongoing evolutionary arms race. This can involve predator-prey, parasite-host, or parasite-pathogen interactions. Example, predator-prey. An example of this is the coevolution of cheetahs and gazelles. Cheetahs evolve to run at high speeds for catching gazelles, while gazelles evolve their agility and speed to avoid being caught. Example, parasite-host. Parasites often evolve strategies to evade the immune systems of hosts, while hosts evolve defense mechanisms to combat parasites. A well-known example of this is the coevolution between malaria-causing parasites and human hosts, where some populations have evolved genetic resistance. 3. Competitive coevolution. In competitive coevolution, species evolve traits that help them outcompete another species for shared resources. The evolution of competing traits can cause a species to specialize in a particular niche, making them more competitive. Example, plants and herbivores. As herbivores feed on plants, some plants evolve to produce toxins or physical defenses, like thorns, to deter herbivores. In turn, herbivores may evolve detoxification mechanisms or specialized adaptations, such as stronger jaws, to continue feeding on those plants. B. Mechanisms of coevolution. Reciprocal selection. Coevolution typically results in reciprocal selective pressures. For instance, the faster or more efficient a predator becomes at capturing its prey, the more pressure the prey species faces to evolve better defenses or escape strategies. Red Queen hypothesis. This hypothesis posits that species must constantly evolve just to maintain their fitness relative to the ever-evolving species they interact with. For example, a prey species must continually evolve new methods to evade a predator, while predators must evolve improved methods for capture. Adaptive radiation. Coevolution can stimulate adaptive radiation, where multiple species evolve into different ecological niches based on the reciprocal interactions they have with each other, often in relation to environmental resources or interspecies competition. See examples of coevolutionary processes. 1. Plants and herbivores. The evolution of chemical defenses, like toxins, and physical defenses, like spines and tough leaves, by plants as a response to herbivora. Herbivores, on the other hand, develop mechanisms to overcome these defenses, such as detoxification enzymes, or behavioral strategies like feeding selectively on certain plants. Example, the relationship between milkweed plants and monarch butterflies. Milkweed produces toxic chemicals, cardinalides, to deter herbivores, but monarch caterpillars have evolved resistance to the toxins. 2. Host-parasite coevolution. Parasites and their hosts exert strong selective pressures on each other. As parasites evolve to infect their hosts more efficiently, hosts evolve immune defenses, and this cycle can continue, leading to a genetic arms race between them. Example, the evolution of immune system adaptations in humans is a response to parasitic infections, such as sickle cell anemia, providing some resistance to malaria. 3. Predator-prey coevolution. Prey species evolve defenses, such as camouflage, speed, or poison, while predators evolve counter-adaptations, such as sharper senses, increased speed, or poison resistance. Example, cheetahs and gazelles. Cheetahs evolve to become faster in pursuit, and gazelles develop rapid movements and agility to escape predators. Example, snakes and mice. Some snakes evolve the ability to overcome mice as natural defense, e.g., venomous snakes, while some mice species evolve to be faster or more cryptic to avoid predation. 3. Previous year's GATE questions on coevolution Q1 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2017, which of the following is an example of coevolution? A. Divergence of beak shapes in Darwin's finches. B. Predator and prey adaptations. C. Formation of bacterial resistance to antibiotics. D. Migration patterns of birds. Answer, B. Predator and prey adaptations. Explanation. This example represents antagonistic coevolution, where predators and prey exert selective pressures on each other, leading to a cycle of adaptation. Q2 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2019. Coevolution between flowering plants and pollinators generally results in A. Mutualistic relationships benefiting both species. B. Competitive relationships where both species compete for the same resources. C. An arms race between competing species. D. Parasitism, where one species exploits the other. Answer, A. Mutualistic relationships benefiting both species. Explanation. In this case, the relationship benefits both parties. Pollinators receive nectar or pollen, and the flowers get pollinated, aiding in reproduction. Q3 GATE Ecology and Evolution 2020. Which of the following could be an example of antagonistic coevolution? A. Trees and herbivores. B. Humans and dogs. C. Bacteria and antibiotics. D. Birds and seeds.